Welcome back to our MBTI channel. My name is Max, and this video is all about action planning. So you've already done the MBTI with us either at the OSIT Institute or through one of our external engagements, and chances are we've already talked about action planning, but we wanted to put up this video on our YouTube channel just to make sure that we captured some of the essential ideas to keep in mind as you go through an action plan if this is something that you want to do. And I'll come back to this every once in a while during the video, but we are available if you want us to come in and sort of give a helping hand in defining the action plan. If you need anything specific, you can get in touch with us and we'll define what it is that you need and how we can assist in that matter. So let's start with the goal part of the action plan. So, thinking about a goal, uh, this can mean different things, right? Thinking about a goal, looking at the MBTI report that you received, regardless of the report, it can be a report for organizations, it can be a step two report, it can be any kind of report that has to do with the MBTI. Thinking about a goal can mean different things. It can mean something like, okay, I got my report back and I got back with a certain type. It is what it is. And it also highlights that I use certain functions more than others. And maybe what I'd like to do is try to leverage a little more those functions that I'm not comfortable using, right? So what do I mean by this? Well, basically, if you think about information gathering and decision making, it can mean in terms of information gathering, you came back with a preference for sensing and you like to develop intuition a little more or vice versa, or you can get into decision making and the same kind of deal with thinking and feeling. So this is a very kind of broad goal. It can mean different things. It can be applied in different ways. A different approach to it would be to look at specific competencies. So let me give you an example of what I mean by this. Still looking at the report you got, you get to the point of, okay, maybe I'd like to work on communication style. Maybe I'd like to work on communication style as it pertains to conflict resolution. So this is a different kind of avenue, a little more specific than just looking at the type you came back with. But both are completely legitimate. It depends on what is it that you want to achieve? Why is this showing up as meaningful to you at this specific moment? And so this is why you want to do this exercise from the get-go. It's to give you an idea of, okay, what am I interested in? The second aspect to it is completely related in that regard because you want to start thinking about the benefits of doing this, right? So thinking about benefits, and they can be in different categories, right? It can be benefits in my own personal life. It can be benefits in my professional life. It can be benefits in both realms. It doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be one way or the other, but it's gonna force you to think about why am I doing this really? And it may sound counterintuitive, to make that point in a video about action planning, but one of the big driving forces behind the action plan is that you feel committed in doing it, right? So if there's no clear benefit to you in doing this, how committed will you be in actually doing it, right? So this is an important part, thinking about benefits, thinking about what this means for you specifically, and this it's going to dovetail quite nicely into priorities, right? Because, shocker, we have busy lives. We have a limited amount of time with an unlimited amount of tasks to achieve, an unlimited amount of engagements to go through. So, thinking about priorities, you may want to further refine your goal. Let me just get back real quick to my example about communication styles and conflict resolution. Maybe in the end, you come to realize, well, what I have on my plate, I'm not going to have, real time to get into communication and conflict resolution. Maybe what's more realistic is, just to focus on communication style, and I'll get into conflict resolution somewhere down the line. It may be an example, it may apply, it may not. Again, it depends on your specific circumstances, and this is why this exercise is so important. So the next step of it is thinking about what we like to call key enablers, feedback and support. And so what we have here is really just a way of thinking about it. People who will give you feedback, people who will give you support. On the surface of it, you may think, well, aren't they the same people? Maybe, but maybe not. And even more complicated than this, maybe you don't want to bring people into the process. Maybe this is something you want to do on your own. And again, this is perfectly fine. But if you decide to bring people in, to provide you with feedback on how you do things and to help you sort of stay committed, keep you accountable on what you want to achieve, but also give you some pointers on how you're doing things in order to help you measure just how close you are or not to the main goal of it, then this needs to be thought out intentionally and systematically. You're going to want to bring people in for different kinds of reasons, right? So this has to be part of the thinking process that comes into the action planning phase. Again, same logic applies to the support part of it. What kind of support do you need in order to reach your goal? Sometimes it's only a matter of having enough time in a week to work on some stuff that you've identified, but sometimes you'll need other kinds of support, maybe material support. Maybe you need to buy books, maybe you need to take a class, maybe you need all sorts of things that you haven't thought about yet, but this is going to go into the action planning phase of it. And not to belabor my point, but this is also a place that we can come in and lend assistance. All you need to do is reach out to us, and it's going to be our pleasure to do it, right? So these are the first two parts of the action plan, the first two main parts, I should say, of the action plan. Other parts can be added at your discretion, obviously, right? So we've talked about the goal, we've talked about key enablers. What remains is the last part, and the last part is all about SMART objectives, which is really a different way of saying the roadmap that you want to follow in order to reach your goal. So allow me to sort of focus in on this last part. SMART objectives. It's our experience that most of you know what SMART objectives are, but still, when we say SMART objectives, we mean an objective that is specific, measurable, action-oriented, realistic, and timely. So allow me to go back again to my example on communication styles. If this is something you want to work on, you need to break it down a bit further into objectives. How do you how do you intend to reach your goal of exploring different communication styles, challenging yourself and doing stuff differently? So this is when SMART objectives will come in. One example of this, and you can have more than one objective in that section to reach your goal, but one example of this could be something along the lines of, I want to try to do stuff differently in meetings, right? So the meeting part of it is right then and there more specific. So how do you want to do stuff differently? This needs to be, well thought out so that it's measurable. Maybe if you have a preference for extroversion, maybe it is something as obvious as saying or thinking, I want to take a step back a little more during meetings and be more reflective and allow others to sort of offer their viewpoints and maybe hold myself back a little bit before I jump in and offer my own perspective. That's very measurable, at the same time action oriented. Maybe on the flip side of it, if you're more introverted or you have a preference for introversion, maybe it's the complete opposite that you want to do and challenge yourself with. Maybe it is that, okay, I want to force myself to be a bit more involved in the meeting in terms of voicing my opinion, maybe offering up ideas, uh, a bit more consistently instead of reflecting and trying to make sense of what's going on uh, within myself, right? So that's both measurable and action oriented. If we look at the realistic part of it, that seems really realistic, right? So this is something that is completely realistic in the sense that you'll have meetings, that you'll be able to keep track of what's going on. So that's realistic. Last but not least is timely, because this is going to require some efforts on your part, and you want to see some movement in terms of progress. So maybe what you want to do is say, okay, so for the next month or so, I want to focus. I want to focus specifically on doing this. So it's going to be timely in that regard. So you go about your normal day, you have a meeting, you're aware of what you're trying to achieve in terms of that specific objective. It's going to require of you that you are more intentional in how you go about it. Maybe it's going to ask of you to reflect a little more about what went on during a specific meeting. So for that reason, and for many other reasons as well, the objective needs to be timely. Nobody can do this and sustain this indefinitely. So again, specific, measurable, action-oriented, realistic, and timely. This is how you build an objective. I just gave you an example, really a basic example, thinking about communication style. And the key to it is that your objective or objectives, if there's more than one, and in many cases there will be more than one. The important thing is that your objectives be tied back to the main goal. So it's a good idea, and the way you do it is the way you do it, but one way to do it would be to just get a pad of paper and just sort of thing this out, put this in the form of a diagram or whatever the case may be, but to make sure that, once you've established your goal, once you've established the benefits in trying to reach that goal, that all your objectives that you're building, they're tied back into achieving said goal. So this is the way to think about action planning for the MBTI. Again, if you have any questions regarding the process, should you want us to be involved in any way, shape, or form, feel free to reach out to us. It's going to be our pleasure to set up a conversation with you and take it from there.